Ever heard the expression, you are what you eat?
Sure have.
Well, how about what you eat or don't eat may lead to disease?
True
Colon
enough.
or colorectal cancer is a dreaded disease, and we already know that red meat and alcohol and sugar and unhealthy fats and smoking also are risk factors for it. A Michigan study shows that the interaction between inflammation and the microbes in the GI system can result in colon tumors. So how does this play out?
It's really interesting. You know, the whole thing about what grows in the intestinal tract makes a big difference. We forget that there's about 10 times as many microbes in the gut as there are cells in our body. And there's a profound biochemical and physiological interrelationship between the microflora of the intestinal tract and the rest of the body. So what we eat makes a big difference in what can grow there.
And it sounds like if you have inflammatory situations in your GI
Inflammatory
tract,
bowel disease like ulcerative colitis?
yeah, that could make it worse.
Well, it
Of
does.
course, you don't know what's first, the chicken or the egg, you know, if the inflammation causes it or the microbes cause the inflammation.
That was
and
part
the
of
cancer.
what they tried to determine in the study, which was published in the Journal of the American Society for Microbiology in November of 2013. And what they did is they went ahead and they made the differentiation between what actually causes the disease. And they looked at mice who were sterile at birth. And they made transplantations of the stool from other mice who had cancer and put it in them and had that take over. And what they found is that twice as many of the mice who got the fecal implantation from a mouse who had cancer would develop as opposed to those that were coming from mice that didn't have it. So they knew that what they were giving these mice in terms of stool made a difference where it came from.
So what's the role of the antibiotic with this?
Well, they took another group and they treated them with antibiotics before they did the transplant and after the transplant was done. And in those mice, you didn't see twice the incidence of it.
Well, wouldn't that make a doctor kind of think that it would be a good idea to give a patient an antibiotic if they had colon cancer?
That would be, well, it's once you have colon cancer, it's too late. I mean, you're not going to undo it with an antibiotic. But if you wanted to give it prophylactically,
maybe if you had the risk factors.
or if you wanted to, well, yeah, but even so, some doctors might do that, but that would be a huge mistake because when you alter the ecosystem of the intestinal tract, it takes a long time to restore what's there, and antibiotics basically kill all the friendly microbes.
Okay, let me phrase it another way.
Right.
What if they find the microbes in the gut that are the ones that predispose to colon cancer, and they want to give an antibiotic for that?
Now you're getting a better question there, but we still don't know which ones for sure will do that. So practically at this point in time, taking an antibiotic wouldn't work, but it's a very good idea.
Well,
And I'm sure
probiotics are probably better anyway because they crowd out the bad ones.
now you're talking. Do the safe thing first to try and make a change there. So when we're looking at the ecosystem of the gut, we have to remember that what we eat and how our lifestyle is affects what can grow there. Because if you eat certain things, certain microbes will grow and certain others will not. So for example, if someone is lactose intolerant, what happens is you can't digest that lactose, but guess what? There are a lot of bacteria down there that can, and when they do, they produce a lot of gas and irritants that cause all the symptoms we see of people who have lactose intolerance.
So you need to be careful with what you eat, and you need to stay away from like chips and desserts that have fat and sugar
All
and
the
all
wrong
that.
fats. Well, we have an epidemic of very bad fats that we consume.
Trans fats.
Most of the fats that we consume are fats that are not healthy, they've been processed. You would think that the vegetable oils, because vegetables are good for you, would be very healthy. And indeed they would be if we didn't process them and destroy the double bonds that are so life-saving and health-enriching.
You know, they talk mostly about red meat, but also processed meat isn't a good thing.
For sure.
And I think when they're talking about the red meat, they're talking about meat that's not organic, it's not grass-fed, or free-range pasture.
Things like salami and bologna and some processed meats, they're rich in substances that actually can cause cancer.
Well, and think about if the meat isn't an organic meat, it's loaded with hormones
Sure.
and pesticides
Antibiotics, right.
and growth hormones and
Right.
food coloring, all the things that are carcinogenic. So
Exactly. So what we have here is something to pay attention to. We know that what we eat's important. Everybody talks about what we eat is what makes up who you are. But it also makes up who you are if you live in the intestinal tract and you're a microbe. And if the wrong bugs are growing there, you're going to have results that are going to be a real problem for you in some instances. There will come a time when we will be able to diagnose things, like you're saying, in advance based on what the microflora of the gut is like. We already know that there's a huge increase in the risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes and even obesity when certain microbes are down there. And we need more research to do this, and fortunately, our National Institutes of Health is looking into it. So when we look at the microbes that live in the gut and their effect on our health, it's profound. And as we learn more and more, we're going to find that it's something that may come into clinical practice where we actually modify that ecosystem so that the right bugs live there and can promote good health.